And joining me now to talk more about this, Republican Congressman Peter King, who is also chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Good to see you. Good morning.
Chris, good to be with you.
You know, it's been pointed out that using the 67 borders as a starting point is frankly what Bill Clinton, Ehud Barak, and Yasser Arafat were talking about at Camp David. It's what George W. Bush was talking about with Ariel Sharon and Ehud Olmert. So is criticism of the president yesterday political?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a very legitimate question here. It's one thing to talk about the 67 borders as aspirational or as a goal, but to in effect say up front that Israel has to agree to the 67 borders is almost taking away the purpose of negotiations. And also, in each of those, certainly with President Bush, has always made clear that there had to be allowances made for the change in security to secure Israel security. So I just feel that the president here, especially when it comes right after Hamas has become part of the Palestinian Authority, to be saying up front that Israel has to agree to the 67 borders, to me is undue pressure on Israel, especially when you put it in the full context of the almost gratuitous shots that President Obama has taken at Prime Minister Netanyahu over the last several years.
Well, all this is happening, of course, in the middle of monumental changes in the Arab world and the death of Osama bin Laden. You have hearings starting on Wednesday on what that death means essentially for U.S. security. What do you hope to accomplish?
The main thing I want to do is alert the American people that even though bin Laden was killed, and President Obama deserves tremendous credit for that, the fact is the world is still dangerous, Al-Qaeda is still functioning, it's somewhat in disarray, but it's also morphed to other agencies around the world, to other franchises, and that we have a great deal still to be concerned about with Al-Qaeda. So our witnesses, I believe, from my conversations with them, are going to highlight the fact that we have to be very much on guard. In fact, in many ways, the terror threat is higher now than at any time since September 11th. I believe that threat rather than from outside. It'll be either sleeper cells in this country or lone wolves who are going to feel they have to avenge bin Laden's death, or they have to show that Al-Qaeda is still real. But the fact is the war goes on, and yes, bin Laden's death is a great victory, but the war is far from over.
But about 30 mid-sized cities in the middle of all this are losing counterterrorism funding. Instead, that money apparently going to focus on big cities like New York. What did we learn from the cache of intelligence from bin Laden's compound about where money should go?
Well, based really on all the analyses over the last several years, and including the 9/11 Commission recommendations, the funding should go to the areas that are the #1 targets. And you mentioned New York. There's New York and a number of other cities who have always been at the top of the terror target list. A number of other cities which have been taken from the list, it's theoretically they could be attacked, but the fact is you have to put the resources where the threats are. And the overwhelming threats are against cities such as New York, Washington, D.C., Port of Houston, Los Angeles. In fact, New York and Long Island are by far the #1 terrorist target in the entire country. And with only so much money to go around, it should go to the areas that need it the most.
We are already talking a lot about 2012. Mike Huckabee isn't running. Donald Trump isn't running. Newt Gingrich, I think it's fair to say his campaign is on the ropes. I know that there are some people who are interested in Peter King running. Are you thinking about it?
Oh, actually, the National Republican Organization, which is the most powerful in the country, they announced this week they would support me as a favorite son candidate. Listen, my focus is on getting reelected to Congress. What happens as far as any presidential aspirations, I'm not going to Iowa, I'm not going to New Hampshire, but we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm focused on getting reelected.
I'm detecting a small smile, perhaps, when you say that, Congressman. Are you thinking about it? I mean, it's obviously not a situation, given the amount of money it would take for a Republican nominee, that you can wait very long to consider.
No, I mean, let's face it, the odds are very much against it. But again, when something's out there, I'm not going to stand in the way. I mean, if you saw a smile on my face, it's because when I was growing up in Sunnyside, Queens, I never thought any national network anchor would be asking me if I'm going to be running for president of the United States. So some of that reality still hasn't sunk in. But my job is to get reelected to Congress and do the job as chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. But hey, listen, if something happens with the presidential race, I'll decide at that time. But right now, don't expect to see me in Iowa or New Hampshire. Unless I'm asked to campaign for Governor Christie or Mayor Giuliani.
Congressman Peter King, thank you very much.
Thank you.